Hi everyone, you're listening to She Leads with Carly. Our guest today is JJ Ramberg. JJ is a tech entrepreneur and national TV host. She's a co-founder of Goodpods, a social podcasting app, and goodshop.com. And she's been a TV host for networks including BBC, CNN, and MSNBC, where she ended up hosting a show that was meant to last 6 months, but turned into 13 years. Anyway, we chat about her career, the advice that she's learned along the way, and one that really sticks out to me is to always treat the job you're doing seriously. JJ's first job was as a receptionist, and you'll hear from JJ, but it really doesn't seem like you could find a better receptionist than her. Take a listen and enjoy. Hello, JJ. Thank you so much for coming on She Leads today. I'm so excited to just hear your story and get to know you better, so thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. So JJ, you are a tech entrepreneur and national TV host. So you're the co-founder of Goodpods, which you'll tell me obviously a bit more, but it's a social podcasting app where you can really listen to what your friends are listening to, what influencers and celebrities are listening to. So first of all, I've loved getting the app and just exploring it, so it's incredible. But then prior to that, you're also the co-founder of Goodshop. You were a TV host for BBC World News, for MSNBC of the Your Business show for 12 years, and then the Been There, Built That podcast. And prior to that, a TV host and reporter for CNN. So incredible career. I'm excited to learn more. So first, tell me a little bit more about Goodpods. So we'll go back a bit to Duke and all of that. But first, tell me what Goodpods is and what was the inspiration behind building it?
I'm sure. I'll tell you, nothing makes me happier than to hear you say that you're using it and love it. Because for someone who's built a product, to talk to people who love it is just, it's what all you want, right? That's what you want to hear. So I'll tell you, so you explained it. Goodpods is an app where you can follow your friends and influencers like Gwyneth Paltrow or Malcolm Gladwell or Kim Kardashian to see what podcasts and specific episodes they're listening to. So if you just picture like your Instagram feed or your Twitter feed, but what it is JJ listened to this, Carly listened to this.
Yeah.
And we started it like so many people start things because of a personal need. Well, it's actually two things, really. One is as a listener, I was just having time finding a new podcast. And I would literally, this might happen to you.
Yeah.
I would be going out for a run. Let's just say I had 40 minutes. And I would spend 20 of those minutes like scrolling through my phone.
Yep.
Like, what am I going to listen to next? And so I wanted to make that process more efficient where I could pick up my phone and be like, oh, Carly listened to this, play.
Yeah.
The second thing was kind of bigger picture, which is that when I was at NBC News, I had a podcast that was backed by NBC News. And it did well because I have this machine behind me.
Yeah.
But what about all those people who do not have buckets of marketing dollars or industry connections, right? And you want to get more voices out there in the world actually heard. And so Goodpods really, we set out to help the listener as well as the podcaster.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, someone like me just started a podcast, like this is perfect. As you said, like someone new, doesn't have this budget and whatnot. So love that. And then also I could definitely relate to that because you also find yourself, shuffling through like 3 podcasts maybe or 3 to 4, and you really just listen to the same, different episodes within that one. But there are hundreds, thousands of podcasts that you can listen to. So definitely a need. So I love that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and what I love about podcasts is what I loved about journalism, which is like you get to go in and out of these worlds, right? So I want to learn about science today, and today I want to laugh, and tomorrow I want to have some kind of wellness podcast. And so that's why I like getting suggestions from all kinds of friends, because different friends are good curators of different genres.
Yeah, amazing. And the fact that I can, listen to what Malcolm Gladwell's listening to, and they're all on that. The ones you mentioned, Gwyneth Paltrow, Kim Kardashian, they're all on it. So it's very cool. So, okay, now, speaking of journalism, take me back to when you graduated from Duke. You got a degree in English. So I've listened to other podcasts that you were on, and it seems like you have a whole family of entrepreneurs. Like that was kind of in your blood. But I want to know, at this moment, graduating from Duke, did you know that you would be an entrepreneur, or what were you kind of thinking of in your career? How were you going to navigate it?
No, I think somewhere along the line, I knew I wanted to, or I would want to start a business at some point. But when I graduated from college, I didn't have an idea of anything that I wanted to start. I moved to New York City after graduating from Duke, and I kind of wanted to work in development for like PBS or something, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. And so while I was in New York and just looking for a job, I got the opportunity to be the receptionist for NBC Nightly News, temp job. And so I took it so that I could make money while I was looking for what would be my real job ultimately.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I loved it. And it's funny because I became a news producer eventually, but if I had described my dream job at that point, I would have described news producer, but I didn't know what it was.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So in this time, I guess advice for others, especially now with so much uncertainty, like the world is crazy right now. Would you say it's almost just like don't put so much weight on your first job and like who knows, it could turn into this huge passion? Or what would you advise others, around my age who are going into this workforce?
Yeah, I think you don't know what you're going to love until you do it. And so there is no harm in just trying something. Yeah. And I'll tell you what is one of my favorite stories. So I got this job as a receptionist for NBC Nightly News. And here's my real advice. I don't care what job you have, take it seriously. Oh, I mean, so in those days when you took messages, you literally took them on these like pink pieces of paper, and there was this little brown thing that I would put them in. So like, MJ, here are your messages. Phil, here are your messages.
Oh, my goodness.
But you would have thought that I was like writing the Declaration of Independence, the way I would take these messages and deliver them to people.
Wow, yeah.
Like when a fax come, I'd be like, move out, a fax is coming.
I love that.
And so because of that, I think people, understood that I took my job seriously. My friend Cheryl said to me in the beginning, she was a senior producer at Nightly News, and she said, look, JJ, I know this is not your end job. This is not your dream job to be answering the phones.
Yeah.
But treat this as if it is so that people see what you're capable of.
Yeah.
But here's my favorite story. That wasn't it, which is the executive producer of Nightly News was leaving Nightly News to go start a new magazine program called Now with Tom Brokaw and Katie Couric. Oh. And he was this, to me, I was 21 years old. I was kind of shy, and he was this scary guy to me. But he was going to do the show. And so I went into his office, and I was like, Steve, I heard that you're going to go do this new show. I would like to work for you, and I want a job on the new show. And he was like, okay, great. Well, I can think about this, but I have a co-executive producer. His name's Paul Greenberg. You have to go talk to him. Sorry about the noise.
No, it's fine.
You have to go talk to him. And another guy who's a senior producer at NBC News was in the room. And you can't just send her up to Paul. You got to give an introduction.
Yeah.
And so Steve wrote a note that said, Paul, this is JJ. She wants to work for us. Talk to her. And I took the note from him, and I looked at it, and I read it, and I handed it back to him, and I said, can you please write P.S. not as the receptionist?
Wow.
And so he wrote I still have the note. He wrote P.S. not as a receptionist. And then I went, up to the 22nd floor, and I, knocked on, Paul, my name's JJ. I have this note for you.
That's amazing. I love that story.
And so they hired me as an assistant producer, and then I kept working up from there.
Wow, that's a great story. Because also, JJ, I think the fact of you advocating for yourself, like that's also not an easy thing to do, to go into his office and say, I want to work for you, your next job that you're starting and whatnot. So I think that's also a key lesson in it as well, which I love.
To be clear, I was petrified.
Yeah. So
right?
How did you get past that?
Years old. What's that? How did I get past it? I don't know. I don't know, because I really was shy. You might not have known it from the outside, but with all of my important phone message taking, but I was shy. There was no, Sheryl Sandberg hadn't taught me to lean in yet.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I think I just did it. I was like, this is what I want to do next. Here's my chance.
Amazing. So then, okay, so now take me through, right now you're in this mindset where, I love journalism and I'm going to pursue this. And, starting your own company, that was kind of still in the back of your head, but not really, going into it. So what was that next stage? Going to CNN, being a reporter, and then MSNBC, or how was that process?
No, I worked at NBC for a few years on that show now, and then I went to Dateline, and then in the middle of the night, one night we all worked very very hard in those days, and people in the news still do. Yeah. But I was up doing a story. I can't remember if it was Michael Jackson getting married or Michael Jackson getting divorced. It was one of those stories. Okay. It was like 4 a.m, and it was a very fun job. I worked with such great people, and we worked, I remember going like 6 months without a break and loving it still. But anyhow, it was one of those. And I thought, is this what I want to be doing with my life, right? Doing these stories all the time. Yeah. And in those days, there were 4 magazine shows. There wasn't really a lot of cable news. There was, as a news producer, it wasn't quite as clear what else you could do. Right. And so I decided to apply to business school. So I applied to business school. I got in, and I got my acceptance, and I kept it on my desk for like 3 weeks as I was deciding, should I go, should I not go? I have this great job that I had dreamed about being, right, Dateline NBC. Am I really going to give that all up to go to business school? And then I decided to go, so I got my MBA.
Wow, and you got your MBA from Stanford, so obviously love that connection. And so you ended up deciding, and again, like what was, did you think that you're going to go back to journalism? Were you putting it aside? And also, what were people telling you? Your family, what were they saying? Definitely go to get an MBA, it's important, or stick with this job that you love?
My family, they were supportive of whatever I wanted to do. It wasn't so crazy to them because my sister got her MBA, my brother did, my parents were in business. People in the news thought I was crazy. They were like, why would you leave Dateline NBC? There's no better job if you're going to work in the news. Why are you leaving NBC News? Yeah. So they thought I was crazy, but I went ahead and I left. And I don't, at that time, I don't think I knew what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to have more opportunities to do different kinds of things. So I went eyes open of what might be interesting to me.
Yeah. And so one thing I'm curious about is, you almost had that Michael Jackson story to kind of wake you up in a bit and say, do I want to do this for, many years to come? And I think it's easy to be, caught up in the job, doing the everyday tasks and not really thinking, what do I want or what's my future look like? So do you have advice in that sense, being like, maybe like how often should you tap into yourself and realize, okay, maybe this job that I'm at is not a long-term thing and I should be looking into other things?
I think you should ask yourself, but I think you got to give something a chance because most things are interesting once you understand them, right? And once you get a handle on things. And so I think people need to be patient with themselves and say, let me stick with this job for a little while. Let me see, once I master this, then I can say, is it interesting? Let me look at the people who are 5 years ahead of me and say, does that job look interesting to me? Yeah. Wouldn't be so quick to just be like, ugh, I hate what I'm doing. I mean, work is work. A lot of what you do in work is not that fun, even if it's the best job you've ever had. Right. And so I think give things a shot and understand that even if this isn't where you're going to stay long term, you're building all these tools that go into your toolbox that you'll take with you elsewhere.
I love that. I feel like oftentimes you even build these tools that you don't even think, are useful. You don't even think about. And then later on, you're like, oh, wow, like this, I learned this from this job that I did. So I think that's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So now tell me about Good Shop. So that was your first company you co-founded, I believe, with your brother, correct?
I did. So I worked in the internet for a few years for this company called cooking.com. This was internet 1.0 when there was like blah, blah, blah.com, right? eyes.com, cable.com. And then I missed journalism. And so I decided that I wanted to go back to TV and I got a job. I actually was hired by CNN to open their Silicon Valley Bureau. And then the internet bubble burst, Silicon Valley Bureau never happened. I stayed in LA and I was a producer and then switched to being on air. So I hosted a show for CNN Financial News and then did reporting for CNN as well. And then I left that to start my company. So this is when I finally had an idea to start something. So my brother and I started a company which was called Good Search. Now it's called Good Shop. And the idea was you do everyday actions and a percentage of the revenue generated goes to your favorite cause. So it started with every time you do a search, and then it went to every time you shop and use coupons. So we've raised probably about $14 million now for causes around the world.
That's incredible. Amazing. And so if I remember correctly, a year after founding Good Search or Good Shop, you went back to news or, hosting your own show, your business, right?
Not even a year.
Wow.
So yeah. Like a few months in to starting Good Search, and I was working at home, right? It was a startup and it was bootstrapped. MSNBC called me. So I once in a while did freelance work for CNN when they needed somebody to fill in. They just knew that I was around and, working 24 hours a day at home in my pajamas, trying to start my company. And so I was working at the stock exchange, filling in for somebody at CNN. Meanwhile, over at MSNBC, they had just gotten a deal to a small business show called Your Business. It was just going to be 6 months, and they needed an anchor. And the executive producer sitting in his office, and he looked up at the TV, and he saw me at the stock exchange, said, "How about her?" And so called a friend of mine at CNN and said, "I'm watching this woman, JJ Ramberg. Is she under contract with CNN?" He said, "He's not. Here's her number." And so they called me and offered me the job. And again, it was meant to be 6 months. And so who's going to turn that down? Like my own show for 6 months, I could do that. And so I took it, and then it ended up being 13 years. So I ended up starting my company and starting the show all at the same time. And also I got married and had 3 kids in that period also. So there was a lot going on.
Yeah, just to say the least, a lot going on. But that's crazy. And I think a few things. One, I think this yes and mentality that you had. You got this opportunity, you're going to say yes, you're not going to let it go. But I'm wondering, so was your brother, was he saying like, yes, definitely do it? Or was he being like, you know what, we just started this, like we need to put all of our eggs in this, like we need to do this now? Was that kind of friction, or how was that?
Not at all. I mean, I think probably in part because he's my brother, right? Yeah. And so he's, as much as he was my business partner, he's my brother, and also was like, oh, that's a cool opportunity for my sister, right? Not for my co-founder, but for my sister. Right. And so he was like, yeah, go do it. And again, it was just meant to be 6 months.
Crazy.
And so, but it worked out. I mean, it was a great combination because the show was all about entrepreneurship. So I'd learn things from my guests and then take them home and implement them over at Good Shop.
That's amazing. And I looked into that show, and you had also incredible guests, founder of Peloton, Warby Parker, just a bunch of different people. So sounded amazing. And then, at this stage in your life, you have Good Shop, you have MSNBC. Was this like incredible? Were you just, everything was perfect, or what was happening at this time?
I mean, look, nothing's ever perfect. But can I just tell you one other thing that because I just think it's helpful for people to know about the taking advantage of opportunities. Yeah. So there was one other thing that I did back while I was at CNN that I really look back on and I appreciate a lot for this experience, which is when I was at CNN, I was a producer when I first got there, and the anchor that I was working with went on maternity leave. And so I had always been interested in international development work, but had never worked in it. And so I went and I asked CNN, can I take a leave while she's on a leave? Because I'm in LA. You don't, let's be realistic. Like, if she's not here, you don't need me as much. Yeah. And so I took off part of her leave, and I went and I consulted for a microfinance organization. Wow. In Uganda the first year, and then I actually did it the next 2 summers as well, where I did it in India. And so it's not sort of the smartest thing that I could have done for my career, because I took time off and I clearly, set the tone that there are other things that I'm interested in as well. Yeah. But it didn't end up hurting me in the end, and I ended up learning so much from it and having these incredible experiences. And also, I think this is kind of interesting for women. It was where a lot of my friends were starting to get married and have kids, and I wasn't. And I thought to myself, look, here's an opportunity in my life where I can do these kinds of things where I'm not affecting anyone else but myself. So I should take advantage of this right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very similar in this age of like 20s so I had a guest actually, and she called it the decade of discovery of your 20s. and it should be this time where, you're discovering yourself and you don't have kids and a family to, have this to look after. So I think that's awesome. So JJ, also, I'm curious, so now kind of going with, starting Good Shop and Goodpods. First of all, the good part, is that just something that, what is that aspect of having good in the name? I'm curious.
It's so Good Church and Good Shop. When I was younger, I was always interested in socially responsible business. Like, the Body Shop was kind of the big one when I was a kid.
Yeah.
How cool was it with what she was doing, Anita Roderick, and Ben and Jerry's, right? So in my mind, that was always something interesting to me. And that was part of the genesis of Good Search and Good Shop, which is a company that gives back. Goodpods is it's good in a different way, in which, like, you're looking for good things to listen to, but also we do have this real mission that is even kind of hammered home even more given what's happened in the world and everyone's awareness of things in the last many months of we just have to hear more voices, right? I mean, we have to raise up more voices and have access to them and have them pushed and put in front of us.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's very important. So now back to Goodpods. First of all, entrepreneurs, there are many people throughout the whole world who have ideas, but it kind of stays as an idea. They don't go beyond, having it in their mind saying this would be amazing, but, I don't know what else to do from now, or I don't know how to get started. What advice do you have for actually, putting it from an idea to a reality, or taking a step to actually make it, manifest it? So yeah, what advice do you have for that?
I spent 13 years asking people the same question. Well, doing it myself as an entrepreneur, but also asking the people this question as a journalist. And I think there are two things. One is, or three things. I'll give you three things. One is you have to know yourself. Do you have it in you? Because starting something new means it's all on you, right? Yeah. There's no one who you're going to say, hey, how do I, can you get this new employee health insurance, right? Every decision is on you. And so do you want to work in the place where you are making the big decisions and also taking out the trash? Yeah. And by the way, the answer might be no. I have lots of friends who left big jobs to start something and then decided, no, actually, I kind of like the corporate life, and which is great. Good for them. Yeah. Second is, do you have a good idea? So just know that 99% of your friends are going to tell you have a good idea, because no one wants to. Right. No one wants to either A, make you feel bad, or B, end up wrong. End up being the one who was like, you said it wasn't going to work, and it did, right? Yeah. And so as best as you can, try and get honest feedback from people. As best as you can solicit that, try and get honest feedback from people. And then three, have some faith in yourself. A lot of entrepreneurs told me, and John Foley from Peloton was them. He said, at some point, I just had to have this conversation of, what if this fails? What's the worst that can happen? Mm-hmm. And he said, okay, let's just say I put all of my effort into this and it fails. And he had kids at the time. So my wife and I have no income from it. We've lost all this money. We move into my mother-in-law's house, and the kids, I guess they went to private school, right? We take them out and they go to public school. And it's like, is that the worst thing in the world? And if the answer is no, well, then you can take that risk. Yeah. Interesting. So I talk a lot to my guests about this mentality of failure. And that's kind of what you're talking about. Like, what's the worst case that could happen? Are you ready? Like, is it okay to fail? And what's at the end? So have you thought that you've taken on this mindset, with Goodpods and your career with entrepreneurship? Oh yeah. I mean, you have to expect that some things aren't going to work, either small things like an idea you have, a marketing idea is not resonating with the audience, or big things, right? I know lots of entrepreneurs whose companies have just not worked. But I do think that the kind of big, scary what if becomes less scary when you actually go down that path and say, okay, what if, here's what happens. Yeah. Now, is that so bad? Can I handle that? Yeah. And if the answer is no, I can't handle that, well, then you got to consider that. Yeah. Okay. I love it. And so before we end off with fun questions, I want to ask you,
She Leads, a big theme is really being a female leader. So, you kind of have these two industries where being a female entrepreneur, but also in journalism. How has the role of gender, if it has, for you played a role, how has it been for you, and what advice do you give other females to, advocate for themselves and, have a seat at the table, if you will? So what have you learned throughout your career?
I have a lot of really great women that I've worked with, starting from, again, when I was the receptionist at NBC Nightly News, this woman, Cheryl Gould, who was a senior producer, number 2 in charge. And we're still friends. And she was just amazing, right? And so I've always had these women, this woman, Lisa Schaub, Amy Rosenberg, all these great women to look up to in my jobs as a journalist. And yes, when I started out, the big jobs in the front office, and still in many places are mostly men. Yeah. But I just always had women that I've looked up to in my jobs. And my mom, frankly, I think 2 things. My mom was a very, very successful entrepreneur. Wow. She was a stay-at-home mom till her mid-40s and then started a company. And I also went to an all-girls school growing up. So I think I had this mentality. That said, I will say when I read Sheryl Sandberg's book, right, of Lean In, which I think everyone should read, I did recognize myself in those pages. And so I think you take a step back and look at yourself and say, okay, am I doing this correctly? And even in a very easy way, say, would a male colleague of mine be doing the same thing? And if not, why not? Is my way better? Right? But just, am I getting what I'm supposed to be getting in this, whatever?
Yeah. And then if not, then, having the strength, having the confidence to go advocate for yourself and say, and speak up for yourself. So I think that's great. And also, what was kind of hidden in there was, your mom, that she sounds like an incredible woman. And also the idea where, there's no age restriction to start something and to pursue your career and whatnot. So I love that. I think that's awesome.
And, if I could just add one other thing too, is you have to be in the mindset, like, if I'm not doing this for myself, then I'm the dummy. It's like we've been told enough times now that women have gotten the short end of the stick on a lot of things. And so you're not going to be going to somebody who doesn't know that.
Right.
So take advantage of this moment we are in the world where we've been given the power to go advocate for ourselves. I don't mean do it in a way that's crazy where you're asking for stuff that you clearly don't deserve because you haven't worked for it.
Right.
But I just mean in a way that makes it equitable for everyone.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that. And okay, so now JJ, first of all, love talking to you and getting to know you, so thank you. But now tell me a little bit, what is a passion or hobby you have that's just unrelated to any work?
It is a brand new one. So we just moved to Los Angeles, and my children, who have been begging for a trampoline forever, we just got one.
Amazing.
And so my new hobby is bouncing on that trampoline.
That is incredible. I love that. I could similar new quarantine activity is my family's actually turned one of our tables, our kitchen table, into a ping pong table. So that's been so fun. So I could relate. Okay, and then the last thing is, JJ, what's a fun or weird hidden talent? So no one really knows about this about you. So I'm going to go first, all right? So what I do is I throw blueberries into my mouth, okay? So here we go. All right. There we go.
Have you ever missed, by the way?
I missed in my early episodes, but now I'm an expert, so it's all good.
All right, I'm staying with the theme, which is I'm going to tell you that I'm pretty darn good at that trampoline. And now I have learned all of these tricks. So my son and I have these contests where you have to like bounce, sitting down and then go in front and then back and then front and then back and then front. And so that is my new hidden talent.
I love it. Do you watch videos, or is this something that you just do on the fly, or how do you learn these new skills?
From my 12-year-old son.
Amazing. That sounds great. Okay, and JJ, tell me, so anyone can go onto Goodpods. It's not just for podcasters, it's for really anyone who loves podcasts, correct?
All listeners, you can download it from the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. You can go to goodpods.com. There's a download link there. Amazing. And everyone should follow Carly.
Thank you. Well, JJ, thank you so much. I've loved this. It's been so fun, and I appreciate your time and everything. So thank you.
So fun to talk to you, and thank you for doing this. It's great for people your age to know that you can do anything that you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I appreciate it.